Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals. What does it take to attempt to steal your car from a police lockup? It sure isn't brains. A runaway cyclist is all washed up when he hits the spin cycle. And a bail bondsman who dresses up for a dragnet to catch his man. For these and other stories that'll curl your hair, sit back and be amazed at America's Dumbest Criminals.
Delta 1566, give me a call on your primary.
Now, welcome your hosts for America's Dumbest Criminals, Daniel Butler and Debbie Allen.
Thank you. All right, question, Debbie. What's your worst experience in a fast food restaurant?
Oh, well, it's kind of gross, but once I found ants in my coleslaw.
Ooh, ants.
How about you?
No, I had uncles in my beans once, but ants.
Well, I doubt if anybody has had an experience that even comes close to what occurs when a crook tries to order the restaurant staff around, and that's coming up in a little while. But first, we turn our attention toward life on the open road.
Oh, yeah. Every year, we seem to come across an Evel Knievel wannabe. Now, based on his abilities, this fella might want to reconsider training wheels.
Fortunately for us, this uneasy rider's photo finish was caught on camera.
My partner and I were working radar on the Seabreeze Bridge. A motorcycle came across at 69 to 70 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. So Officer Tarr pulled out to stop the motorcycle, and the motorcycle immediately pulled over to the side of the road, but he didn't come to a stop. He coasted at about 3 or 4 miles an hour. When the light turned green, he gunned it to take off. He was going to run. Well, there was a little bit of sand on the bridge because of the beach being so close, and the motorcycle went right out from underneath him. He almost hit another motorcycle, and then he went sliding face first on the pavement. As soon as he stopped sliding, he got up, put his hands behind his back. He knew he was had.
I think it was the great Greek philosopher Anonymous who stated, "The job's not finished till the paperwork's done."
Since when is Anonymous a great Greek philosopher?
Well, I don't know. It's just like 1400 AD, I think. I went to junior college, okay? He was a junior college philosopher, Anonymous.
Well, at any rate, our next crook would have been wise to have heeded those words of wisdom. Instead, he left something to remember me by.
We responded to a call, and upon arrival, we discovered the store had been robbed.
May I help you?
Yes, you can. You can give me all the money in this register.
And instead of the perpetrator taking the money out of the cash register, he just decided to take the cash register and run out of the store. The funny thing about it, he lived approximately 2 or 3 blocks in a little alley behind the store. We followed the perpetrator through the alley. After the cash register's tape reeled off, it just led us directly to his front porch. So in my years of law enforcement, that's the dumbest incident I could think of.
You know, he was on a roll there for a minute. You know, there's a surprising reason why they call the police vehicle lockup the Pound. As we discover in the surveillance video you're about to see, a gassed-up driver pounds on the gate with his car to gain admittance for his buddies.
As you can imagine, that is not proper procedure, and authorities were not favorably impressed with his bumper car shenanigans. Here's the first part of this 2-part assault. Your view is the parking lot outside the police lockup. The gate is just to the left of the camera. The guys in the first car are waiting patiently for the lot manager to return, but not for long. The new car brings passengers fueled by the fire of youth, as well as the sanity suppressants of alcohol and drugs. They approach the office and don't like what they find. No one's home and only a chain-link gate separates them from their impounded automobiles. We'll fast forward a bit to find these geniuses confabbing in their own little late-night Mensa meeting.
Dang, what should we do?
I want my car.
Well, I want my car too.
I like curly fries.
Well, what if we dug a tunnel and drove them under the gate?
We ain't got no shovels.
Well, what if we tied helium balloons on them and floated them over?
Well, we ain't got no string. I like curly fries.
Hey, you could just drive your car through the gate.
Yeah, they'd never figure it out. It'd be like a hit and run.
Yeah.
This is brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
Then can we go get some curly fries?
Stay tuned for the high-impact conclusion a little later.
In Alabama, it's illegal to sell, buy, possess, or train a bear for bear wrestling.
Okay. Hey, when you think of the phrase great expectations, does Dickens come to mind? Well, it doesn't come into play into this story unless the officer wondered why in the Dickens the motorist he stopped would deliver a line worthy of America's dumbest excuses.
One night I was north of Alamogordo working traffic, running radar. I'd written quite a few citations for speed. I pulled over a real young couple from, come to find out he was a GI from Holloman Air Force Base. Very seldom do I ask anybody why they were speeding, but for some reason I asked this young GI, I said, how come you're running so fast? And he said, well, I've got to get my wife to the hospital. And I said, well, what's wrong with her? And he said, well, she's pregnant. And I poked my head in the window and I looked at her, and her tummy was very flat. And I said, so how far along is she? And he looked at his watch and said, oh, about 2 hours now.
Okay. No premature excuse there. Our blue light special tonight could almost be a blue plate special. A robber thought he'd have easy pickings when he held up a fast food chicken restaurant. But when the thief tried to pluck the cash, he almost gets tarred and feathered. To paraphrase the Bible, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And before you do it, Crisco, Changeo, let's roll the tape. Had a bad plan you thought you'd hatch. Now you're getting clawed for some chicken scratch. Try to get away, but get nowhere. Stopped in a hurry with the swing of a chair. You must be a chicken, because you're just plain fried. Now take a hit to your other side. Here's what you get for being a jerk. Gonna show you some fancy footwork. You better get going. You better move quick, or I'll whoop up on you with a big long stick. Get your wits about you, and you'd best move away. Bet you're gonna live to regret this day. Listen to the caller. Now you know. We're all done. Here's your order to go.
Ouch! I bet he wished he'd gone through the drive-thru. And that's in contrast to the fellow who decided to drive through the gate at the police lockup, as we saw earlier. Well, when we left, the driver was being cheered on by his friend. And here's a play-by-play of what happened next. The driver's got his signals. He's kicking up a little dust. Okay, here's the wind-up and the follow-through. Crash! Don't think he got a solid lick on it. Just deflected off his license plate. Here he comes again. Boom! That's it. The gate is out of there. A grand slam. Looks like his buddies are trying to steal. There they go, one right after another. Looks like they're all headed home. And maybe just in time, because the lot manager returns and doesn't think much of their foul play. Of course, he takes it all in stride because he has the license number of every car, plus this tell-all video.
When traveling, the crew of ADC eats at Tony Roma's. Tony Roma's, over 200 locations worldwide.
And now for a man that fits serious news like Roger Ebert fits Speedos, here's Daniel with ADC Headlines.
Here's a visual image. A pharmacist in Ohio didn't want the hassle of checking a prescription for a caller, so he said he was being robbed. But Crying Wolf was not so foxy. The caller immediately phoned police, who rushed to the scene to find a druggist who felt just awful about being such a pill. He had stolen credit cards, so he figured he'd impress his gang member buddies by renting a limousine to cruise Hollywood. Just one problem, though. The owner of the limo company discovered the card was stolen and alerted police. A police officer assumed the role of limousine driver and proceeded to chauffeur the privileged party right to police headquarters, where formal charges were filed. Never mess with an enterprising 9-year-old. That's what 2 teenagers learned when they robbed the little boy's lemonade stand of $6. He gave police a good description of the culprits, and they were quickly apprehended. When that local radio station championed his cause, the boy raked in over $500 in less than 2 hours. Now that's turning a lemon into lemonade. And that closes the file on ADC Headlines, news ripped from somewhere near the back of your local newspaper. Debbie?
A mistaken identity is nothing new. Shakespeare used it as a plot device. It's been a clever trick in dozens of movies, but it's not so clever here. And maybe that's because a poor Joe Blow mistook his own identity. It's tonight's embarrassing special delivery.
This man came to court one day, and he was highly intoxicated, and he pled guilty to giving a false name to a police officer. Well, he couldn't pay his fines, so we put him in jail to serve his time. After a couple of days, we checked the photograph. It didn't look like a bit like the man that we had in jail. So we went into the jail and we asked him who he was, and he admitted that he was the cousin to the man that he pled guilty for, and that he was so intoxicated that he must have accidentally pled guilty for the guy. And we asked him, he said, you know, why did you stay in jail? And he said, well, he felt like we wouldn't believe him. We charged him with criminal impersonation, and he pled guilty to that, and we gave him time served. So basically, he sat in jail for 4 days for his cousin for absolutely no reason at all.
You know, no one ever said the life of a bail bondsman was glamorous, although Joey Barnum, no relation to P.T., has hobnobbed with plenty of stars in his day. Not only is it not glamorous, in this case, it's downright homely. Here's a man who'll do absolutely anything to get his man.
Sitting in this office one night about 9 or 10 o'clock, and I get a phone call. And it's a guy I bailed out before. Joey says, I owe you one. He said, you know the guy you're looking for, $25,000 bail, who jumped bail on you? I said, yeah. He said, well, he's down at this bar. He said, and if you get down there, you know, you might be able to get the guy, but be careful because the guy's packing a gun and he knows what you look like. So 2 weeks prior to this, my wife and I had a Halloween party. So I dressed in drag. I went in the back, jumped in my car, and I go down to this bar. As I walk in, sure enough, the guy was sitting there spending money like a drunken sailor. But I walked in and I squeezed in between him and another guy. Now, I must have looked pretty good because the guy bought me a drink. So anyway, I'm drinking my drink, and I'm nervous. How am I going to do this? You know, I know the guy's packing a gun. All of a sudden, the door opens up. Who walks in but my wife? She didn't trust me.
What are you doing in door closed?
I said, oh my God, if I'm going to make my move, I better do it now. So I dump my drink in the guy's lap. He jumps up. I hit him with a left hook and a right cross. As he was going down, even the bartender said, holy cow, can that broad punch? So I put the handcuffs on. I jump on him. I put the handcuffs on him. And just then, I get a beep on my beeper. So I go to the phone. And the guy says, Joey, he says, my son is over here in the Alhambra Police Department. He says, can you come over and get him out? I said, yeah. I said, it'll be about 45 minutes before I can get there. He says, Joey, he says, by the way, he says, what do you look like? I says, I'll be wearing a red dress.
Now, let's look back at one of ADC's greatest hits.
From the ADC security cam vaults, no cops here. This is actual hidden surveillance footage of an undercover officer buying cocaine in a motel room. The man you'll see in the ball cap is a dealer. And what did they watch on TV while doing a dope deal?
Man, MTV, right.
Now, every dope deal begins with small talk and shooting the breeze. And in no time at all, the dealer is ready to risk 20 years in prison for $1,600.
All right, they're going out to the car to pick it up and bring it back in.
Now, the one thing that always takes the most time in every dope deal is counting the money.
They should. Let me lose count.
Finally, the deal is done. But the undercover officer decides to give the dealer one last tip.
young man. Shove that in front of your pants.
Make it look like you have something there.
Yeah, that's what you don't want me to do. Right in front of my friend. It's just something about I like having the money in the front. For some reason, the police told somebody they want to grab around your I'll stay as far away from them as I can.
In Oregon, it's illegal to use canned corn as bait for fishing.
Oh, a while ago, I was working at the station, and I got a phone call one morning from a burglary victim at the apartment house. He asked me if I would come out and talk to him about the burglary. I listened, he says, he says, I had $1,000 cash that was stolen. It was on top of my dresser in a wooden box. And we were playing poker the night before, and I had a few friends over, and this one particular guy who lives in the apartment complex, he kept looking up at that box, and I think maybe he might know what happened to it, or maybe he's the guy that took it. So I do a little homework, and I run and find out that he'd had a recent misdemeanor theft arrest in Logan City. So I checked the file, and I found, if you will, the fingerprint card from the gentleman, similar to this one. I went and I took the fingerprint card, and I went over and placed it on a Xerox machine and ran off a copy. Then I took the copy, and I cut out a hole of the center of one of the fingerprints. Took that and put it on the back of a 3x5 card, and therefore having a copy of a fingerprint. So I called the gentleman up and asked him if he would come in. He says, well, sure, yes, I'd heard about that. It was a terrible thing. So he comes into the station. I need to talk to you about this burglary here. So basically, I said, just to get to the chase, I need to get the guy's money back, and I understand you're probably the one responsible for it. And he goes, no, I don't know anything about the case. And I said, well, unfortunately, you probably do have an involvement. And he says, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you know that fingerprints don't lie. He goes, right? He goes, that's right. I said, well, I want to show you something. And I took the card and I said, this is the fingerprint that I lifted from the scene. Pulled up the card and I said, and this is a fingerprint card from when you were arrested for your shoplift a while ago. Now, I'm going to show you something. I put them down on the table and I pull out the magnifying glass and I said, I want to see this point. And I designated point A to point B, the scar, the mark, the ridges. And I said, but that's not my finger. I said, I can swear to God that is your fingerprint. I said, can you bring the money in? He says, well, I've only got $700 left, but I said, well, go get it and bring it back. And he says, I don't understand this. I wore gloves. But he never knew how we basically pulled it off.
Oh, man. Well, you've heard the expression, it's a small world. I know you have, Debbie. But in this case, it's a small pizza with pepperoni and mushrooms, I think.
Confused? Well, take a look and see how delivering the goods puts a pizza guy on the doorstep of destiny.
It's a thick and chewy example of, we're not making this up.
I received a call that a local pizza delivery man delivered a pizza to one of our apartment complexes, and the people who he delivered the pizza to paid for the pizza with his own personal checks that were stolen a couple weeks prior to this call. He showed me the check that they gave him. They signed his name. It was his own personal checks that were stolen. I mean, once in a lifetime opportunity that ever happens. He had the address on where he delivered the pizza, so me and my partner went back up there. They didn't in fact steal the checks, but they got them from somebody else, knowing that they weren't good checks. It was funny because the guy's name was Tom and a woman signed the check. I locked them up and they got convicted for passing bad checks. To top it all off, they included a tip on his own bad check.
The tip, that was it. Well, that's all from us for now.
If you've got a lead on a story, or you just can't wait till next week for more state-of-the-art stupidity, visit our website at www.dumbcrimes.com.
We want to thank you for joining us and extend our gratitude to the law enforcement officers who make the show possible. Every day, they lay their lives on the line to keep us safe from the stupidity of would-be criminals.
As always, we hope that we've all learned from others' mistakes.
But if you haven't, we just might see you next week on America's Dumbest Criminals.
Goodbye.